Ohio sports car course in Lexington, Ohio. This is the NTT IndyCar Series. With complete coverage of today's practice, this is the IndyCar Radio Network.
The Honda Indy 200 in Mid-Ohio. Beautiful sports car course in Lexington, Ohio. I'm Mark James. Welcome to practice session number 2 before we go qualifying later today in preparation for Sunday's race. Happy to be joined by our driver analyst, Davey Hamilton. And Davey, after a spirited practice session yesterday, waited until the last 15 minutes, as they always do in that initial session, to work with the alternates. Pagenaud Award was P1. Alex Pagenaud, your series points leader, stays hot. Second, quick, Marcus Ericsson. Christian Lundgaard with a good weekend so far. Kirkwood, Roman Grosjean, Newgarden, McLaughlin, Rossi, Herta, the top 10. Yesterday was, I think, except for a couple of offs and one red early on by Elio Castroneves. All in all, things were pretty pedestrian yesterday, Davey, but as they prepare for qualifying and looking to get to that ragged edge, we might see a bit more activity, if you will, off course today.
Yeah, well, one thing today, Mark, was a little different. It did rain last night. It did wash some rubber off the track, but Indy Next was just on track, and it seemed that the track continued to dry while Indy Next was on course. And we were wondering about, hey, where the speed's going to be, whether, are they going to be a little bit slower? But you know what? They picked up. They actually gained about 0.3 of a second over yesterday. So this track is now dry, pretty much the entire track. Rubber's starting to lay back down. It's cool, Mark, which means engines run better when they're cool, and also a little more downforce with these cars. So anytime you have wings on a car or under wings, it generates downforce. With this heavy air, will give you a little more downforce. Track temps slowly coming up, ambient temps coming up. So I expect to see some really good times. I think the cars are going to be handling pretty good. A little bit earlier in Indy Next, we've seen a few cars with a little vapor trail coming off their wing marks, seeing that knowing there's a lot of moisture in this air and it's trying to squeeze it out, leaving those vapor trails. So anxious to see. Now, one thing, they do not get to put on the softer red sidewall tires. That's just for qualifying. The next time they'll use those. I'm a little interested why they choose the first session to do the reds and not this one right before qualifying. But anyway, no matter what, these teams are going to be looking for some speed for qualifying, just like you said.
Well, again, as we said, the thing about this weekend, which differs from a couple of weekends ago at Road America with the new paving there, it was a clean slate, a blank sheet of paper for all of these teams and all of these engineers. That is not the case for this event at Mid-Ohio. Now, there have been some changes made, turn number 1 most notably, but boy, this should seem very, very familiar for pretty much all 27 drivers, save for a couple that are here for the first time. But this should be very familiar to these teams and drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said about that repaving down in turn 1, can't even hardly tell they did it. They did a really good job with that, but it has definitely increased speeds through turn 1, making it faster through there. One thing that I've noticed too, and we talked about it yesterday, in turn 12 and 13, that's the next place probably for some repaving. A little bumpy down there. It seems like if you get a little too low in turn 12, bouncing the right side tires off the ground, and then going into the final turn 13, still a little rough down there, cars bouncing around. So they need to be careful. We've seen some just be a little aggressive in that area, and when the tires are off the ground, they're not sticking, they're not going fast. So that's one area that they have to pay attention to. But the rest of this racetrack, I think it's just like it was last year, so they have a lot of notes. Another good thing about yesterday that we've seen, Mark, is a lot of teams spread out in the top 5. I mean, I think it was 4 teams in the top 5. So what that allows them to do is give that information to their teammates. So I expect to be really competitive, and you can't really point out which team is going to be on the pole. I mean, I think there's some drivers that have a little bit of wing favor. Obviously, Pagenaud being towards the top, Power right now, P1, Ilott P2 as they get going here. But it's going to be interesting to see who can pull off a pole this afternoon.
1 hour window to get 45 minutes of green time in, and it was an all-skate. Became that way pretty much very early on. There are a handful of teams that have yet to turn a lap or at least clear the timing loop for the first time. 19 of the 27 cars entered have taken laps early on here. Will Power has gone fastest so far, then Canapino, Ilott, Dixon, and Newgarden. That's going to change plenty, though, as the activity continues through this 1 hour window to get that 45 minutes in. Now, for a driver like Graham Rahal, this is a home race. And for a couple of our pit reporters, this is essentially a home race weekend for them. We welcome in to update us on the conditions for this practice session from nearby WIMA in Lima, Ohio. We say good morning to Alex Wolf.
Good morning, Mark. It's great to be at the home race here in Lexington, Ohio, with the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. And it's also nice to have some better feeling out as far as air quality. Some of those smoke from the wildfires in Canada were featured prominently in the weather conditions earlier this week, with air quality alerts all over the state of Ohio. But things are a little bit better thanks to that precipitation overnight that Davey Hamilton was talking about. But as we get going with this second practice session for the NTT IndyCar Series, ambient temperature of 78, track temperature is at 87. The sun is out, a lot of clouds around, but the muggy meter, if you will, is pegged 82% humidity, and the dew point is at 72%, so you can definitely feel that in the air. But right now, all systems go as far as the conditions go. It's dry, and that's the most important thing here in Mid-Ohio.
Davey wants you to expand upon, we reference it many, many times. What are the benefits for these race cars when the conditions have improved to the extent that they have, just in terms of how much cooler it is? The air is a little drier. It's cloudy. What's the difference in the performance of the race cars if it were, say, sunny at 85 right now?
Yeah, well, the hotter, when that sun's out, first thing it does on this asphalt, we know, I've got a red flag first, Mark. Oh, we got a big upside down.
Simon Pagenaud has gotten upside down, Davey.
Yeah, he sure has. And that gravel trap looks like down there into the turn 4 area. I see Simon's head moving around. He looks okay. The car is definitely beat up against that tire barrier. You can see a couple, in the gravel trap where that thing bounced around there and got upside down. So let's check with safety workers going into the rear wing laid off that car in the middle of that trap. Boy, just a lot of debris for everybody. I see one of the safety workers down talking to Simon right now. Could be a little tricky to get that car upsided against a tire barrier like it is right there. So looks like good news. They just want to get the car up. Thumbs up, I think, for Simon. He's just kind of hanging out in there. But boy, what a ride early on this morning for Simon Pagenaud. Ripped off all the suspensions on that car. I mean, the front tires are definitely ripped off of it. Big shunt for Simon. We
have yet to see a replay, Davey, but that is a violent-looking crash.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not just he went in the sand trap and tipped over. That was he's tipped over several times. I mean, that took a cartwheel for sure to that gravel trap. Like you say, until we see a replay, we don't know exactly what happens. So we see all the AMR safety crew tipping Simon over onto the tire barrier. They have it now to where it's on its side, so he'd be able to get out of the car at that point without falling upside down or into the gravel trap himself. So, like I say, see the helmet moving around there. He looks to be okay. Yeah. Let's just keep an eye on there, and all safe. It's all hands on deck, so to speak, trying to get that car uprighted.
There are 8 members of the AMR IndyCar safety crew. 8 members, 9 now it looks like, that have converged upon that race car. And Davey, as is often the case, by the time that car comes to a stop, there are already safety crew members on the scene. And a great shot right now as Simon Pagenaud is climbing out of that race car. He's going to sit on the ground for a minute, Davey, and I would imagine he's got some he got rattled a little bit for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Jeez, what a terrible start of the day for Simon. I think he just sat down there and kind of non-belief and just kind of catching his breath. Boy, I don't know what went on, but that was a really big ride. It's just great to see Simon is at least okay. I mean, I know anytime you get upside down and have a shunt like that, you're going to feel it, but he still has his helmet on. He's standing there just trying to catch a breath, and boy, just a good sign seeing Simon standing there.
We can give you an idea what the rest of this day is going to look like. Here it is, Davey.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, that was about a 10 flip. He looked like the throttle almost stuck on that car. I mean, he was, and I'm telling you, he rolled that thing 8-10 times easy. And I mean, debris just flying off of that massively. And we see when he came off the track, it was airborne on its side. There's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go. 8. Well, 9 times. That thing flipped over 9 times. And into that tire barrier. And, nothing hit hard. And coming from the short track world, you definitely don't want to see anything hit hard, and that was bouncing around there. He's waving. Thank goodness for Simon. Glad to see that he's okay. But I'm not sure what happened. But he came off at turn 4 almost like the throttle stuck. I mean, he was absolutely flying. And as we talked about earlier in the day, is where the banking of turn 4 goes up and it drops off pretty drastically down into that gravel trap. And he was 4 feet in the air before he ever got to the gravel.
Well, one thing is for sure, after what we just witnessed, everyone with the NTT IndyCar Series, Davey, that is involved in the safety and design of these race cars, and the manufacturer, Dallara, you tell me that they haven't done their job in making these cars absolutely as safe as humanly possible. I mean, that is
absolutely.
That's a violent crash that a driver's walking away from.
That's a violent crash. We're showing a replay of the same area with Michael Andretti back in the day, and he flipped like 2 or 3 times. I mean, he's full of dirt and mud, Michael was, but I'll tell you what, this one was Simon. Thank goodness for a lot of different things. I mean, when you flip 9 times and go all the way through that gravel trap to the tire barrier, and as we see, I mean, he was at such a high rate of speed. It was so airborne, and like I say, he went by the corner, 40 mile an hour, 50 mile an hour faster than you can make that corner. That just what tells me that something earlier on before we got, really a good chance to look at exactly what happened. But it just tells me it's, we don't see throttle stick and things like that, or the brake line. Who knows what happened until we talked to Simon. He came after high race speed.
It had to have been one of those two, Davey. It had to have been an issue with the brakes or an issue with the throttle. One of the other.
Yeah. Yeah, because, Simon knows there's a corner there. He knows to slow down to make it. And, boy, he probably went, when you get down there, probably 25, 30, 40 yards from the racetrack to when he first landed in the gravel. I mean, he was flat airborne, like I say, 4 or 5 feet in the air, already upside down. So, that car is just, ripped apart.
They're going to put that back on the hauler with a shovel.
Yeah, with a shovel. I mean, we have more parts off of it than on it now. Fortunately, I'm sure that Meyer-Shank team, by the way, this is their hometown, home race, and there's not a piece of suspension or bodywork on that car that's not hanging off of it. But I'll have to say one great thing with that halo and the canopy, it looks brand new and perfect. So that's what keeps our drivers safe, and it looks good in that aspect. He really never did hit that portion of the car. It just kind of went from left side to right side as it flipped through that gravel. And boy, I just, that we haven't seen anything like that for a long time, Mark.
Yeah, Matt Archuleta, the number of people follow, of course, a contributor on social media, it did post that it appears as though that he might have mentioned something on the radio about not having any brakes. So again, we'll get confirmation from hopefully Simon on that. We've dispatched Alex Wolf to the infield care center, and happy to report again after that violent crash, Simon Pagenaud was extricated from the car in an amazingly short amount of time by the AMR IndyCar safety team. As we continue to get another look at it, Davey, that thing went airborne and stayed in the air for a long time.
Long time,
Yeah.
And as we're watching Mark and keep eye on his head as he's flipping through there, and his head stays really stable, and that's part of no real hard heavy hits. I mean, it was just flying and flipping very fast. By the way, probably a little dizzy after that one. I mean, he was flat flipping around. I mean, very very violently, very fast, but not like hitting a wall and stopping. So it's always good to slow that momentum down by the inertia of the car taking those small hits like that. But, I promise you that Simon, he doesn't come from the dirt track, short track world. So flips like that are just almost impossible to do in IndyCar. But that was quite an experience that he just went through.
We need to welcome in our other pit reporter, and he's with BCSN Sports in Toledo, a tireless worker there covering all forms of sports. Essentially a home race for you as well, Joel Sebastianelli.
Yes, it is, and a shout-out to everybody listening in Toledo, Ohio. Here with Ed Carpenter, overseeing Ed Carpenter Racing, and Ryan Hunter. Right, you brought in Ryan a couple weeks ago for Road America, completed all 55 laps there. What observations has Ryan brought to the team in his short time here so far?
First off, just want to say I'm thankful to see Simon hop out of the car after that wild ride. So thanks to the safety team and Dalar and IndyCar for everything they do. But yeah, no, it's been, we're still kind of in the early phase of this project, but Ryan brings a ton of experience, obviously, championship winning driver, Indy 500 winning driver, so we're really doing a lot of evaluation of everything in our organization, and he's a valuable asset that's been a part of a really big organization with a lot of success over time. So we're still in the early phase of it, but definitely appreciate his willingness to come in and help us out and try to get this ship turned around.
He brings experience with your guys, too, right? Tim Broyles, Matt Barnes. He's known you for a long time. How does that help him get acclimated and give feedback in a way that helps you achieve your objectives? Yeah,
I mean, it's still a big change, but at least having some relationships and familiarity with personalities, eases the transition not only for Ryan, but for us as a team. Working with him, he had tested for us one time back at the end of 2021. So we had that to build off of, but it's hard jumping in the middle of the season, but definitely happy with how it's going so far, and hopefully we'll start to see the whole team performance start to shift here in the near term.
What targets have you guys set for the remainder of the year?
Just improvement. Obviously, we've had venues where we've been okay and others where we've struggled, so really just looking for more consistency out of the whole group.
Rinus is the most experienced driver you guys have had on your team, and I think after 50-something races, there's a lot of guys who want to see themselves as a tenured veteran. What does it say about his maturity to welcome somebody like Ryan into the team and hear his feedback and make himself better? Yeah,
Rinus has got a lot of experience, but he's still young. So I think, I'm encouraged by how this relationship's going so far. They seem to be getting along well and really looking for the same things. So just working to find the best solutions for both of them now.
They seem to be getting ready to go green, so we'll let you get back to work. Thank you, Ed.
Yeah, no problem.
Good stuff with Ed Carpenter, and kind of echoing the conversations that we had yesterday, Davey, about the situation at ECR and what Ryan Hunter-Reay can bring to the team. And again, that many feel, as Ed does clearly, as you and I do, that the young driver Rinus VeeKay, just 22 years old. As Ed said, he's still a young guy, and I still think that plenty of room for improvement, and he continues to do just that, and he has an extremely bright future.
Well, the good thing is Ed made us look good, because that's kind of what we talked about is exactly what he said was, bringing that veteran in that has the experience, as he said, a 500 champ, an IndyCar champ, a points championship winner. And Ryan has a lot of experience. He brings a whole different element to the team as far as what he could see from the outside looking in is to help the team, and that's what Ed said. Hey, it's not going to be overnight, but he's in here to help us turn the ship around, and I think that's where Ed is. He's not pointing fingers at anybody, including Connor. It was just a situation where it was time to make a change for that overall group. Instead of continue doing the same thing week in, week out, and that they felt that Ryan Hunter-Reay was the best guy to do that, and that's pretty much what Ed confirmed.
Davey, we've all heard it as it pertains to the situation involving Connor Daly. I mean, the person on the receiving end of it is as we've all been probably at one time or another. Those that haven't feel very fortunate for them, but sometimes the answer is just as simple. Look, it's not personal, it's just business, and it's time for a change, and that's exactly the decision that Ed made. And trust me, and you know this as well as I do, probably better than I do, much more, because you've been on the inside of this thing. That is not a decision that Ed Carpenter really wanted to make. It's one he felt like he had to make, and there is a difference, because the last thing I think a team owner would really like to do is make a substantive switch like that in the middle of a season.
Yeah, no question. And it wasn't just Ed. I promise you. There was a lot of people involved. There's sponsors. There's, other team principals. There was a lot of people. It wasn't just Ed saying, okay, we're going to make this change. It was pretty much from the ground floor up that they had to talk and meet with people and discuss and know the advantages and the disadvantages of doing what they did. And so it was a long process. I know they've been talking about it for, I think, months, to be really honest with you. So it was just something that slowly came, and the results, they were hoping they were going to come and didn't have to do anything, but the results just weren't there for that entire team.
Given the significance of that incident, the fact that we were red for just 13 minutes, Davey, I think continues to shine the light on the AMR IndyCar safety crew and their ability to handle pretty serious incidents.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there was a lot of debris throughout. I know it wasn't on track. It was in that gravel, but they have to clean that up as well and be able to get that car wrapped up and off the track and get Simon to the safety trailer. What hats off. I mean, they're the best in the world, and they earn it week in and week out of having that reputation of knowing exactly what they're doing. They did it again.
Well, we're back to green. 37 minutes remaining in this session. Colton Herta is P1. Kirkwood, Armstrong, Lundgaard, and Malukas, the top 5. McLaughlin, DeFrancesco, Award, Grosjean, and Power, the top 10. Newgarden, Rosenquist, Eilert, Hunter Ray, and Dixon through 15th. Then Pagenaud, Rob, BK, Canapino, Peterson, Harvey. 21 of the 27 cars have turned laps, Davey, but we expect all of them to be out now with just 37 minutes remaining in that session. And I continue to applaud this move of these practice sessions, giving teams a 1-hour window to get 45 minutes in.
Yeah, that way they know what to expect. And we, as we talked about yesterday as well, they have a tire allotment given to them, each team, which is the same throughout the weekend. And so they have plenty of time to get to be able to use those tires. Matter of fact, they have more time than they have tires they could use. And that's why you see some of the teams kind of waiting, sitting around early in these sessions just to wait till the track gets a little bit more optimal for everybody, to make sure the rubber is as good as it's going to get, and try to cut cut your lap time as much as you can, as we see them all kind of heating their tires going down that long back straightaway. We're on board with Kirkwood right now, going down to that turn 4 where Simon had his incident. So yeah, you're right. I mean, it's just a matter of taking advantage of the time they give you with the tires allotted.
Elio Castroneves is yet to make an appearance, Davey, when it's a situation where it's a teammate. If there was some sort of an issue with a brake or throttle or whatever the case may be, is that something that Elio Castroneves would address with a team? Is it something that crosses his mind because that was a teammate's car?
Yeah, first of all, as we know, Mark, there really is, you usually don't have any kind of problem whatsoever with brakes. I mean, they're pretty basic, pretty straightforward. Nothing usually can go wrong, but, we've had situations where, a bleeder may get stripped out, or they're just, a master cylinder, the O-rings may, get a cut in them and bypass it. But it doesn't happen very often. So I would have to think that they know in that other camp it's nothing that they did wrong, and they have to research what that is. But Elio should have some confidence to go ahead and go out there. As long as his brake pedal's solid, he should be good.
A lot of cars running in groups, and now it's funny because they kind of bunch up together until they get to the area down around Thunder Valley, Davey, and now we're seeing some cars trying to get some separation and try to get some qualifying sims in on these primaries.
Yeah, they all pull out and they go super slow and then kind of hold up everybody behind them until they get some clean track. We see that right now with Colton Herta. We're already going back for the second time and just see cars still backed up. Relatively, I mean, there's, plenty of room on this racetrack, but it's relatively short when you're trying to get free space. As we see right now, we see an 06 car, spare car coming out. So actually Elio's number on that car, but it's going to be fixed up for Simon. They'll have 60 on it in no time. They're going to be hard for us tomorrow trying to defer Elio from Simon if they're exact same color.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on that. And again, Alex Wolf has been dispatched to the infield care center. If you're just joining us, a 13-minute red flag condition. Simon Pagenaud went off the course at turn number 4. The car flipped violently over 9 times and came to rest against the tire barrier. Very happy to report that Simon got out of that car under his own power and walked to the safety car. And he's at the infield care center. The obligatory look-see, but again, that car destroyed, and looks like they're preparing a backup car for Elio Castroneves. Herta, Kirkwood, Armstrong, Lundgaard, and Malukas, the top 5. McLaughlin, DeFrancesco, Award, Grosjean, and Will Power, the top 10. Davey, with the uncertainty of the weather, need to discuss the rain vanes that IndyCar has developed for this year. They're designed to direct water away from the aero screen when it's raining. Dallara is obviously responsible as the chassis manufacturer. IndyCar is making some, has the ability to make them mandatory when the conditions require. That may be the case at points this weekend. Alex Rossi was somewhat involved in the design of this and, putting it through the paces and whatnot. And so the biggest benefit, obviously, is the effort to increase visibility. And that's what they hope it does in the event that it rains, because obviously you don't have wipers on these things, and visibility can be a bit difficult for sure.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. It's with these canopies, a lot of testing's gone into them, and with that windscreen, obviously, it's hard to see. Here's the way I kind of put it. They are round like a jet fighter. There's no windshield wiper blades on these cars, so you just have to rely on the air moving the rain off of it. But Mark, if you get water on your goggles or glasses or close to your eye, it really doesn't bother you that much. Or per se, in the past on our lens of the helmet, you can see through it and it really doesn't affect you that much. But then if you go down the road in your passenger car and the rain is way, in front of you on your windshields, we see Roman Grosjean. Cars just slowing down. It looked like
Canapino. It was
Canapino.
Yep.
Just stopped right in front of you, almost blasted in the back of him. I just think they need to come up with a better exit option for these drivers, because I see big problems happen the way they slow down, and they all need to get up to speed equally. But back to the rain, is if you're in your car and you don't turn your windshield wipers on, very hard to see when it's out in front of you. Well, that's what these drivers have to deal with now. The windshield's out in front of them, a little hard to see. So they have water veins that they're going to put on these cars when it rains that try to blow the air and blow the water off of that windscreen and out of the driver compartment as well. There is a vent in the front of these cars where we got Scott Dixon turned around and looks like in turn 6, turn 5. It looks like going down into turn 6. He got it going again. Looks like he's going to be fine, out of the way and letting cars by, and he took right back off. So rain's going to be interesting. These rain veins that they have designed haven't really had an opportunity to use them yet. So if it does rain, they're prepared.
Trouble in turn 6 for a 6-time winner here. Can you imagine that? 6 times here in Ohio. And the first time was like 2007, I think, Davey. That's that's how long he's been winning races here. Yeah, it was in 2007 he won his first race here. And listen to this podium. It was Scott Dixon, Dario Franchitti, and Elio Castroneves with the podium.
Yeah, and how about Elio Castroneves? We talked about that yesterday. I think he won in 2000 and 2001 or something like that here. So obviously a couple drivers have loads of experience, a lot of success here, and especially Scott Dixon just trying to find the limits. Scott hasn't had, he's been fast. He had a tough race at Road America with that collision with Will Power. Nothing intentional by him. He just made a mistake and pulled out in front of Will. And then, both have them start in the back of the field. But, the Iceman, he comes up 4th in that race, still has a great finish. But he just hasn't had the season that we're used to seeing Scott Dixon have, which means up front, almost every practice up front and most all races. Doesn't win them all, but he's always there. To where now we see him, all over the charts. So, he may be in the back, maybe in the middle. We see him spin a few times, which we usually don't see. Right now he's 19th on the speed charts. When's the last time you've seen Scott Dixon in 19th and actually have a spin? So just a little change up for Scott this year so far.
Yeah, well, he as he often does, though, we thought he was struggling at Mid-Ohio and then late in the race. He always just seems to show up at the end. Him and Will Power are two guys that I think over the past few years have really had a knack for doing that. And again, Davey, to your point, okay, it's not a quote-unquote Scott Dixon-like season. Most of the time when Scott has won a championship, he's kind of done what Alex Pagenaud is threatening to do and make a mockery of the situation. But let's face it, as we've said before, perhaps any criticism or questions that we may have about performance may be somewhat, I think, harsh on our part, because I think it's not necessarily that there's anything wrong with Scott Dixon. It just gives us an idea of just how incredibly deep and talented this field is and how hard it is to win here.
That's exactly right. Scott Dixon still absolutely can get the job done. And anytime we go to IndyCar race, it's never a surprise for him being up front and winning. It's just the competition level has gone up. It's very close with each and every driver out there. And I think Scott's just continuing to do his work and do his job to be the best he can. And it's just going over the limits maybe a few times. And then, the car isn't perfect every time. I think they're just working a little bit harder with some of the rule changes that we go through and some of the things with this new new canopy car to get it to Scott's liking. But and we see people all over. We talk about Ray Hall Letterman, how they've been struggling, but look who's on top of the charts right now, Mark.
Outside of the Indy 500, this is the one that he wants to win for sure. I mean, he used to ride a bicycle around this place with his dad's relationship with the late Jim Truman, whose family built this facility, and of course he won the Indy 500 with Bobby Rahal. But Graham loves this place, and this is the one he circles on his calendar outside of May every year, no question.
Yeah, good for Graham. It looks like to find a little bit of speed. We've seen his teammate yesterday, looked like a pretty good baseline car for that team right off the back, with Lundgaard finding himself up towards the top of the charts, and maybe some of that information came down. Now we got to remember, this is early on, still a good time. He ran a 110.7, still a 106.8, so still some time to be gained there, but that's a decent speed. And then we talked about David Malukas putting out there publicly that he's looking to go to a bigger organization than Dale Coyne Racing, that he's ready for maybe a change to one of the larger teams. Just the chemistry and the continuity at Coyne and is not there this year like it was last year with Sato as a teammate and all the information. Sato was a senior driver, now making Lucas the senior driver. Just don't think he wants that or was ready for that. So he finds himself in P2, so good run for him so far.
Yeah, but I understand they get busy on the pit box and everything, but certainly be nice to get off the. I'd love to hear what Dale Coyne has to say about those very public comments and David Malukas. And I know Dale sometimes is accessible on the pit box given the right circumstances, but given the subject matter, perhaps as soon as the checkered flies, we can maybe hear from Dale Coyne and get his thoughts and impressions. And you said yesterday you didn't have a problem with how public Malukas was with his desire to move on.
No, if it's and I'm pretty sure that between Coyne and the Malukas family, it has been already talked about before that came out, because obviously David's dad is partial owner in that team, so that's a little bit of a surprise when we say, Malukas wants to go somewhere else. When I thought, his dad's owner of that team or partial owner of that team or has involvement with it, so he's going to be there a long time. But I'm sure they had sat down and talked about it and said, hey, for my future as a driver, maybe I'm not the best thing for your guys' team. Maybe you need a senior driver in here that could kind of get you on track with a junior driver, instead of having two fairly inexperienced guys. So I'm going to guess that it was talked about, but you never know. Dale Coyne, he's been pretty comical lucas with a lot of the comments and questions that we ask him, so you never know what that answer will be. But we do know this, is if Lucas isn't there, he'll find somebody that'll replace him, that's for sure.
Well, Davey, I go back to a conversation I had during the media availability way back at Texas Motor Speedway. When I was asking Takuma Sato about his deal with Ganassi and him moving on from Dale Coyne, it sounded to me like that there was a desire there on the part of Dale Coyne to perhaps have Sato return, but he felt like his best chance to win the Indianapolis 500 and be in a competitive ride on ovals was with Chip Ganassi, and we'll see if that pans out when we get to Iowa and Worldwide Technology Raceway. They've already confirmed, despite some of the rumors to the contrary, that he would finish out the season in that capacity. But when asked about his relationship with David Malukas, Takuma Sato said, rather matter-of-factly, that he's doing well now, but one of these days he's going to be with a big team, and he's going to do very, very well. So even Sato felt like that this was only a temporary landing spot for David Malukas.
Yeah, that's very interesting, that comment, Mark. I'm glad you brought that back up and remembered that, because, Sato, you got to give him a lot of credit. He's a race winner. He's a two-time Indy 500 champion. And one thing that he always is really good at is getting cars fast. I mean, I think his feedback to these teams and engineers has always been very good. I think that the teams appreciate that. And I think, obviously, he was really good for David Malukas. I mean, he really enjoyed David, and you've seen him working with him sincerely, not just like, he's a teammate, we're going to help each other out here. I mean, I think he sincerely put a good efforts in and gave good setups. I mean, I think Sato's setup sometimes worked better for Malukas than it did himself, by the way. And so I think that's something that you always have to be careful. I know money is a dictator of our sport, and that money dictates who's going to be in these cars a lot of times. But I think that was a huge loss for Coyne is Sato not being full-time there.
Yeah, well, and to David Malukas is, looking at it from his perspective, I mean, eventually I think David Malukas Malukas would like to be in a situation with a race team, Davey, where he is the guy. But given his lack of experience, I think he also realizes that at this stage of his career, I think it's very, very important for him to be aligned with somebody who's been through the wars and could share that with him.
Yeah, that is exactly right. He someday wants to be that guy, just as you said, but right now he just doesn't have that knowledge or experience to be the lead guy of a team. And then you got a rookie in there, so obviously Stingray's doing the best he can, and he's bringing all the knowledge and desire that he has as well. But that he's a rookie, he doesn't have all that information as a veteran would have. So now you have two drivers that just don't have the experience to be, to give that team what they need as far as data and setup and make the cars faster. So hey, no big surprise, but Dixon, we just talked about him, right? You never know where he's going to be. He was 19th and spun out. Well, he comes in, they look at the car, he goes back out. He's P2 right now, Mark.
So 22 minutes remaining in the session. We just cleared the 23-minute mark. Award has gone to P1 again. He was fast yesterday. Then Dixon, Rahal, Malukas, Kirkwood, the top 5. Rosenquist, Rossi, Grosjean, Armstrong, and Castro Neves through 10th. DeFrancesco 11th, Newgarden 12th, Hunter-Reay 13th. Joseph Newgarden, Ryan Hunter-Reay is now 14th as Joseph jumps into that 13th spot. Santino Ferrucci 15th. Then Harvey, Eilert, Erickson, Canapino, Lundgaard, VK, Power, Pagenaud, Stingray, Robb, Benjamin Peterson, Simon Pagenaud had only turned 3 laps before that crash. And again, he's okay. We hope to hear from him once he's out of the infield care center. He is currently listed as 27th. Quick, they are preparing Helio Castroneves' a backup car. Well, we talked to Ed Carpenter earlier about the switch made to Ryan Hunter-Reay going into Road America. Connor Daly is here at Mid-Ohio this weekend. And yesterday afternoon, our Michael Young caught up with Connor Daly.
We have Connor Daly here on pit lane. Connor has actually been gracious enough to say hello. Miss seeing you at the racetrack, but you've been a busy young man in other places.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, Ohio is, Mid-Ohio is one of my favorite tracks and not too far from home. So easy to drive over this morning and then check it all out. I mean, IndyCar is my family, and I'm a big IndyCar fan first, obviously. It hurts to not be in the car. It hurts a lot, but it's great to be here and just see everyone. So been fun to race in Nitro Cross the last weekend, and I'm racing trucks here next weekend. So trying to stay busy as much as I can.
Obviously, Dennis Reinbold reached out right away. Travis Pastrana reached out. Had to feel good to know that there are people out there wanting your services.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are definitely people that still believe in me, which means a lot to me. So I want to do the best I can every time I'm out on track, and love supporting this series because it's one of my, it's what I love watching. So can't wait to be back in the series hopefully at some point. And until then, it's going to be a great race here for sure, without a doubt.
Out of sight, out of mind, obviously. So it's great to see you at the track. Have you had any conversations? Where are you currently with trying to get back to where I think you ultimately want to be?
I mean, I have conversations all the time. So I love talking to everyone here, and it's interesting, but we just look towards the future for sure. It's hard to tell what happens. I mean, there are so many cars in this championship, which is actually, it's kind of tough for someone who wants to get back into it. So that's good. It's a good thing, but we're just looking towards 2024 and what everything, how that all goes down, and still obviously want to support BitNile.com and all of my friends there and the folks that have got me this far. So it's good to be a part of this weekend.
How has that relationship with BitNile changed at all? Have you been able to support them, and is that relationship still strong for the future?
Well, I mean, they're the reason that I even got to this point in my career. So Todd Alton, those guys, they've been like friends and family to me, and so I'm still going to support their endeavors for sure, and try to work with them on the business side. And you never know what can happen in the future.
Well, we miss having you out here. Best of luck the remainder of the year. Try to find something. We'll look forward to driving the trucks next weekend.
Absolutely. We're not done yet, so we'll see.
Best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Kind of recapping our conversation yesterday, once Michael wrapped up that interview with Connor Daly, Davey, again, some guys are of the opinion that, I will just go home, I will sit and wait, and hopefully the phone is going to ring, or the phone should ring. Connor, obviously, not taking that approach. I mean, he's already had opportunities to be in a race car. You heard him say he's going to be in a truck right here in Mid-Ohio in the coming weeks, and he's here this weekend and in the paddock, and you got to stay visible. You got to stay face-to-face with people, because I think that there could be plenty of shuffling in terms of teams and drivers and seats with the upcoming off season.
Yeah, and that's Connor. He wants to be in a car. It's hard for him to be here. There's no question about it. I give him a lot of credit. And one thing with Connor, he said, "Hey, I'm an IndyCar fan. I love this track. I'm coming here as a fan. I still want to race Indy cars." And he doesn't shy away or go hide from what's going on. So good for him. And another thing. As he said, he goes, "Hey, it's great for IndyCar that it's so hard to get into the series because of, that means it's strong and healthy. Even though he's not part of it, he still loves this series and wants to be part of it."
Colton Herta has gone to P1. That drops Award to P2. Then Dixon, Rahal, Malukas, Kirkwood, Rosenquist, McLaughlin, Rossi, and Grosjean the top 10. Armstrong, Castro Evans, Joseph Dugard, DeFrancesco 14th, Hunter Ray 15th. Santino Ferrucci is 16th, Jack Harvey is 17th, and Callum Ilott. Marcus Ericsson, Canapino, Lundgaard, VK, Palou, Rob Peterson, and Pagenaud. So, Davey, we talked about the tire allotment and what you're allowed to use at when, and the alternates can only be used in the Friday practice session. You'd like to see maybe that altered to where they get an opportunity in this session to run on those alternates the same day as they qualify. So the whole weekend really is about tire management going into qualifying. But, so does that still mean that this session could be somewhat like yesterday's, even though there's only one compound at their disposal? Would you still have drivers working on perhaps race setup, or would you have them working completely on qualifying sims during this entire session?
Yeah, as we see, Will Power, by the way, just go to P1. But what my thought would be is you put the standards on the first session, just let them run their black tires that we have, they're more available. You get more sets of those than you do the reds, and run that first session just to get your balance down, get ready for the race. See what your race setups are, just to kind of use them, get your car closer. Then today, right before qualifying, I'd like to say, well, that's when the red should come out. So right before they know what changes. It's the same day, the same. Most of the time, same temperature and track temp, and to where it gives them a better opportunity to feel, exactly what their car is going to do for qualifying. And then, obviously in the race, the rule is that you have to start with one set of sticker reds and you have to start with one set of sticker blacks throughout the race. That's really the rule. So you take what's left over, because the majority of these teams, they use a couple, say, practice with a set that they can't use till the final warm-up tomorrow. And then they have 3 other sets. Well, 2 of those sets are going to use during qualifying, especially in round 1 and 2, and then just kind of see what happens in the final Fast 6. So they got to pay attention. That's part of the strategy of IndyCar racing, and that every team and team engineer, they keep eye on what tire allotment is.
So Will Power is P1, Davey. 5 poles here for Will Power. He's only been on pole 68 times in his career. Well, really, we should get this qualifying thing hammered out.
Yeah, he might start getting it figured out here pretty soon, as you said. Turned a 106.49, about 3 tenths quicker than Palou, who jumped in front of Herta as well. But Power, Palou, Herta, Award, Dixon, no surprise, are on top. But I'm still impressed in 6th and 7th with Rahal, Malukas in those 2 spots.
How about 2006 Surfers Paradise was his first ever career pole?
Is that one? And he's been talking them and racking them up, and he's not done getting them right now. We've seen a different Will Power the last few years, and Power, I think, just more mature, but he still wants to win. When I say more mature, but then we see, not of his doing, by the way, Road to America, his emotions. He's emotional about things that go bad, and him and Dixon got that little situation in Road to America. But normally, I think we see more wins for Will Power, and then see Ferrucci like gone off, and could be. I think we're in turn 5. I'm not sure. Red flag right now. I'm not sure. There you go. It's a carousel, right? Sure. Yeah. So I'm looking at those the Honda tires. Not looks like maybe the nose.
And let's hear Simon Pagenaud now. How would you caught up with him?
And Simon Pagenaud back in the IndyCar mobile unit. First time I'm physically out here for you.
It was good. No bruises, but I had a right show and a pretty big hit.
Big hit. We've speculated a little what caused it from a driver's seat. What caused it to take place?
Something broke on the car and go down. So it was full speed going downhill, and unfortunately the
gravel there, the bed the downhill is deadly. Another thing to improve. Definitely needs to improve. Always seen it with Michael Andretti. I think 20 years ago. Glad to be joining a legend, but not for the right reasons. But yeah, there needs to be improvement on safety for that type of corner. However, IndyCar is amazing. I mean, honestly, the safety of the cars are rolled, and thanks to the aero screen, I'm here talking to you.
And not only the safety of these cars, but that safety crew, I mean, for as many flips as you had, and you had a lot of flips, there was as many people there swarming over the car to, one, make sure you were all right, and two, get it upright. Just speak to that with the crew there.
Yeah, one of the most stressful part is when you rest upside down, and you're basically stuck in there. I knew to wait, and they came in really quick, so that was really good. I mean, the IndyCar safety team, the medical team, thank them very much. They're very responsive, very reactive, and they care for the drivers. So I'm very thankful as well.
And a flip like that, as you're doing it, is it too quick to think about anything, or what are the thoughts going through your mind during that?
Man, it's a slow process. It's not like you see it on TV for us in the car. It's one of those moments where your body goes to survival mode and everything slows down. I could tell you how many rolls I actually did, and I could tell you exactly where the wall was coming. I could see it, and no, you can dissect every single millisecond of it. It's the brain is just incredible.
And lastly, as you try to figure out what caused that to happen, the crew getting the backup car ready in the paddock, does this do anything to shake your confidence with getting back into the 60 car later today for a qualifying? Does it give you a moment to stop and pause, or are you full systems go again later today?
Well, I mean, I want to go back out there for sure. We'll see what the doctor says. It was a pretty big hit, so there's a protocol follow. I want to be back in the car for sure. I missed one practice. It's going to be very difficult to be competitive today because it's such a track that evolves so much that every lap, every corners, you keep improving yourself with the car. So we've missed a whole 45 minutes of that with the conditions you're going to have in quali. So, and if it rains, I'll be in good shape. That could be our help. I'm hoping I can get back in the car for quali.
Well, we're glad that you're here to able to talk to us, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
That's Simon Pagenaud.
Yeah, class act in many, many ways, Davey, and really good insight. And really a great interview by Alex Wolff of Simon Pagenaud.
Yeah, absolutely. It was the right questions, the right answers, and we got to appreciate Simon. And he's just thankful everything that he's with this series. He has safe cars and safe crew, but that's it. He couldn't slow down. So I'm going to tell you that's about 170 mile an hour probably off. As we see, first glimpse we've seen, Mark was about 5 foot in there sideways, and he is right. That's downhill, so it's like a ski jump down there to where, I don't know what you could do. I mean, it would take some work to change that, but it'd be nice to see that maybe go level with the racetrack, or even uphill a little bit to where you don't get airborne when you fly off the track like that.
Yeah, obviously kudos to Laura and IndyCar, and obviously his comments about the IndyCar safety team. I've talked to a couple of drivers that have been upside down once or twice, and they just described it the way that Simon did. I mean,
yeah.
And if you've ever taken a look sometimes at the in-car look, which we get a view of that from time to time, the drivers literally take their hands off the wheel, some fold their arms across in front of them and just wait for it all to stop and watch it happen. Some of them actually close their eyes, others keep them open.
Yeah, and we're all screaming at the same time. So it's when you go through any incident like that, like Simon said, it happens fast, but you could dissect every millisecond of it. It's really wild that seems like it happens and it goes so slow, and every driver has his own little thing, but most of the time you just it's kind of a survival thing. As Simon said, you just hope for the best. And so we see that Shank team, Meyer Shank team, they're getting after it. Donnie Skinner been there a long time. We see him on the rear end of the gearbox, the motor's lined up with that spare chassis, and I have good there's a lot of time between now and quality, and I think Simon's going to be back in that thing for qualifying. But
didn't sound like he had been cleared yet, though, Davey, which is understandable because of the number of flips that he took.
Yeah, they have a protocol. Earlier in the year we do concussion tests and some things like that to make sure that that they feel that you have no injuries whatsoever. Obviously, physically he doesn't have any, but they want to probably analyze a few little tests for them. Make sure he didn't get any head hits or anything concussion-wise. And he looked good. He sounded good. I feel like he's going to be okay, but he hasn't medically been cleared yet.
And we also might mention, Davey, that video shot that we got back there. You talk about experience with Dallara. They're right there with that crew, pouring over that car with them, figuring out what they need is the legendary Owen Snyder.
Owen Snyder, yeah, he's right in the middle of it. And by the way, if you need him to put that complete car together, he could do that as well. He's not just a parts guy from Dallara. He's an Indy 500 winner as a crew chief. He knows these cars from bottom to top, inside out. Dallara definitely picked the right man for the job when they got him, underneath their camp to do their job with Dallara to make sure these teams have what they need. He is very specific. He very much knows exactly where every piece goes and what it takes to get it there. So Dallara is a huge help in a situation like this.
I remember a reunion photo not long ago. We talk about the super team that AGR had once upon a time with the late Dan Weldon and TK and Dario and Herta. I saw that 92 team with Al Unser Jr. It had among the crew. It had Brian Barnhart, I believe, Ziggy Hargis, Owen Snyder, Kyle Moyer, and I feel like I'm leaving somebody out, but that's a pretty good murderer's row too.
Gallus, he's another guy that I had a lot of success driving for Rick Gallus and that Gallus racing team, and he is another one that we miss in this sport because he was able to put together, such great programs and teams and knew what it took for teamwork, and he had a behind the scenes the ethic of excellence and of how to get the proper people together, and he was able to do it. It's really good seeing those old pictures like that, and you know why Al Jr., especially back in those early 90s, had such success as he did.
So Will Power continues P1. Looks like 66.491 is the time for Will. Alex Palou is currently second quick. Colton Herta third quick. Then Award and Dixon the top five. Rahal is sixth. Malukas is seventh. Kirkwood is 8th, Rosenquist is 9th, Lundgaard is 10th, McLaughlin 11th, Alexander Rossi 12th, Grosjean 13th, Armstrong 14th, 15th Castroneves, 16th VK, 17th Joseph Newgarden, 18th DeFrancesco. Ryan Hunter-Reay is 19th, Santino Ferrucci is 20th, 21st is Jack Harvey, 22nd is Callum Eilert, Marcus Ericsson 23rd, Canapino 24th, Rob 25th, Benjamin Peterson 26th, and we just heard from Simon Pagenaud, who turned just 3 laps before that crash. It's always interesting to me, Davey, when we look at this final practice session and we see Joseph Newgarden 17th quick, and we look back there and we see Marcus Ericsson toiling around at 23rd, and even Rossi at 12th, and Grosjean at 13th, and then all of a sudden we see those guys pop up into the round of 12 once we get to qualifying, and I think what it reminds us of is that we're never really entirely sure specifically what these teams and drivers are choosing to work on during these sessions.
Yeah, and another thing, Mark, we just talked about on the tires. When they go out for the qualifying, they're going to have the softer compound red sidewall tires. Those tires, they do make a difference on balance of your car majority of the time. Whether it gives you a little more front grip, gives you a little more rear grip. Sometimes it's equal, front and rear. You don't have to change a lot. But that's another situation that with those tires, it could change the guy's balance, and you could see a whole different group of people up front with the reds than they are right now.
Yeah, Davey, getting a look at Reedus VK turning a lap here at Mid-Ohio, and we've got our multi-screen monitor view right over the top of the driver's head. And I will say, to your point you talked about in some of these turns like 13 and whatnot, when you get to the inside, things start to get a little bumpy. If I go back and compare 2 weeks ago to this very same camera shot, as we watch him now work his way through the keyhole, we see that steering input, and we see that wheel seem to fight him just a little bit. You see a big wiggle there upon exit of the turn as he gets back into the throttle. Boy, last week, 2 weeks ago at Road America, that place was so silky smooth that they were not getting any return output at all from that steering wheel. It was really smooth in all the turns, and that's not the case here. Is that an indication of just how much bumpier this place is?
Yeah, no question about it. And I think last week, when you're on a freeway, we call it just a brand new paved freeway, how smooth it is. That's what they were feeling up there in Road America. Here's it's the old road. It's old country road. It's been beat up a little bit. It's got snow that it takes in the wintertime. The temperature change is quite a bit throughout the year. You got 4 seasons here that, it's super hot, could be, 5 foot of snow on it as well. So that is part of it. I think the biggest challenge last week was, yes, it was smooth, but with that new asphalt, just different grip levels around the track. That's all going to work itself out, though, by the way. I mean, it's going to be where it's much more consistent, but what they found last week was the inconsistency of the asphalt. Some being a little smoother than the other, some having grip, some extra grip, making it really fast, some having not as much grip. But here, you get what you get. It's pretty much the same. The repaving that they have done, as we talked about down in Turn 1, definitely is a repave job that's giving them more grip, and the rubber, as the rubber lays down, it's going to get faster and faster through that area.
We talk about, at times we make the observation that some tracks, that road and street courses provide drivers an opportunity to kind of rest and relax and maybe take a little bit of a break, if you will, from how tedious the tighter portions of the course can be. I think that's probably, from a driver's perspective, somewhat inaccurate for us to make that observation, because as long as it is, we've got that little kink that's called Turn 3 here, but as long as it takes you to get from 2 down to 4, I'm guessing the mindset actually is for drivers that once you clear, for instance, that keyhole, the only thing in your mind from the time you clear it is making sure that you get the car gathered back in and make a good approach into turn number 4. There's really no time to quote-unquote rest and relax.
No, this is one of those race courses that there is no time for rest and relax. And you just mentioned the straightaways is where we usually have that little bit of a chance. But then, coming off of turn 13 into the new paved turn 1, it's so fast, so technical. There's a curb on the inside. You don't want to slip off the outside. And next thing you know, you're down into that keyhole, fighting that corner as well. But as you said, the longest straightaway, it doesn't take very long to get down that straightaway. Best passing zone, a lot going on there. It's fairly easy to get down through there. But as we just seen, when things can go bad down in turn 4, most of the highlight reels from this racetrack is turn 4, as we see. We see that is coming off of turn 9. Ferrucci spun, did a 360, continued on.
Yep,
Not going to. Yeah, it was Ferrucci. Green still out, but yeah, had a quick little spin. Just back to the technical parts of this racetrack. Going to show a little replay. Comes through turn 8, goes into 9, turned in just a little bit early, spins out actually on the entry of that corner, is able to spin it around. Fortunately, he stayed out of the way of his teammate who came around and passed him, but all good. He made it around, and not a good place to spin because it's a blind corner coming over that hill, Mark.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say, I mean, that is, as we're watching Rosenquist do a pirouette as well in turn number 5. And we discussed that, Davey, going into the weekend, especially that turn 5 area. And then we looked at that down in the kind of the halfway point of Thunder Valley, if you will. I mean, there are some places where there's an abrupt elevation change, and there is a literal defined crest of that hill, and that rear grip could go away without notice.
Yeah, without notice. And the hardest thing is it is so blind, as you just said. You cannot, all you're really looking at is sky. You're just looking up in the air because you cannot see any racetrack in front of you. And then you're just wanting to be on the throttle, feel like you should and you could be, as we see Canapino going off course as well, a little grass on his front wing. And then once that, next thing, you're on the gas, and that back end just wants to let go over that crest, just like you mentioned, Mark. And man, you're just hanging on and trying to keep it on course.
We had suggested going into this session, Davey, that perhaps we could see a few more offs with these drivers pushing the ragged edge.
Well, you nailed that one. There's no question about it. They're trying to get everything they can out of their cars. This is the time to do it. Power that time of 66.49, pretty impressive. Really good speed right there with Plo, Herta, O'Ward, Dixon behind. Everybody chasing him. There we see just these small little mistakes of sliding off course and spinning out. And the good news is they're continuing on. It's not bringing out any yellows or reds at this point. And with only 2 minutes left in the session, they're all trying to get as much as they can out of their car and get ready for qualifying.
We talked about we followed up on the comments by Simon Pagenaud, thinking that the situation with the runoff area in turn 4 needs to be addressed because of the pronounced difference once you leave the course and how the car does just what it did to get airborne. I would say, too, Davey, as we get a look at it just now with Canapino exiting turn number 1 going up that hill, and you talked about the incident involving the late Justin Wilson now several years ago in which he suffered the back injury. Well, I'll tell you what, those asphalts, the asphalt that runs the opposite direction of the racetrack, going up and into the keyhole. When the cars get across those get airborne as well, and that's what could cause things like those back injuries.
Yeah, and that's exactly what, ideally what you would do is have the grass. Anytime there's a race course or a access road or, portions of a different kind of a road course that changes the configuration of these tracks, if you can make the grass higher than the asphalt is ideal. Just a little bit, because when the grass is lower, obviously you come across those like Justin did. He hit that access road. The car bottomed out on that abruptly, which, the way you sit in these cars, it just was like a compound fracture of his back. And so, and just like Simon, we've seen, that turn 4, it worked like a ski jump for him down there. It can all be fixed. It's just a matter of, you got to look at every corner and do the best you can. This track's been around a long time, by the way, Mark. It's not like it's changed, but maybe there's a few things they could do to continue to make it safer, especially since we continue to go faster and faster and faster and just try to, really challenge the limits of every racetrack we go to.
It actually opened in 1962 and hosted, as we said, its first IndyCar Series race on July 13th of 1980. And your winner was Lone Star JR. And listen to this podium. It was Johnny Rutherford in victory lane. Gordon Johncock was second. And third place was Bill Alsop. That's quite a podium.
That. Bill Alsop. I haven't heard Bill Alsop say for a long time.
Let's go to pit road and check in with Joel.
I am not a meteorologist, but the skies are getting darker. Taylor Kyle is the strategist for Marcus Ericsson. How does the threat of rain approach how you attack practice before qualifying?
Well, I think the fact that it was dry when we rolled out here kind of made it an easy decision for us. We were prepared for rain for sure, but the track was dry when it was presented to us at the start of practice, and it stayed that way. So we took advantage of the track, and we've got some offsets that we'll make if it rains, and we've got rain tires already mounted and ready to go. So we'll just react accordingly.
Would rain help or hurt the 8 this afternoon?
I don't think it really matters. Marcus doesn't mind driving in the rain, but there's a lot of guys out here that don't mind it either. So I think for us, it's just about maximizing whatever opportunity we're presented with.
All right, Taylor, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, good stuff as the checkered flies on this session. And, Davey, I think, though, even though some drivers have experience with it, I still think it's like anything else. It's a skill set that you have to do on a fairly regular basis, I would think. And there's no question it's going to have an impact on the strategy. If it does rain.
Yeah, if it does rain, and it does. I'm looking at the weather. It looks like there's rain coming. When's it going to hit? Is it going to be after qualifying, during qualifying, before? Who knows? But rain is going to hit sooner or later here at Mid-Ohio.
5-time pole sitter Will Power is P1 after this session. No one was able to eclipse his 66.491. Alex Palou is second quick. He's staying hot, looking to make a mockery of the championship. Colton Herta is third quick, looking to rebound from a disappointing finish at when he was so bad fast at Road America. Ward and Dixon, the top 5. Then McLaughlin, Ray Hall, Malukas, Kyle Kirkwood, and Felix Rosenquist. Malukas, Kirkwood been among the front runners all weekend. This is a good start for Graham Rahal to the weekend. Lundgaard is 11th. Rossi is 12th. Grosjean is 13th. Harvey is 14th. Armstrong is 15th. Elio Castroneves is 16th. Greenis VK 17th. Newgarden 18th. DeFrancesco 19th. Hunter Ray is 20th. Santino Ferrucci 21st. Ericsson 22nd. Ilott 23rd. Canapino 24th. Stingray Robb is 25th. Benjamin Peterson is 26th. Simon Pagenaud turned about 3 laps before that incident, and he was 27th quick. The way the rest of this day unfolds, the next qualifying comes your way at 2:05 Eastern this afternoon, and then at 2:45 this afternoon we'll go qualifying. And I think the challenge now, Davey, with the debrief, you could talk about what you had in this session, but you also need to prepare for perhaps the inevitability that conditions could be vastly different in terms of rain for qualifying later.
Yeah, we just talked, I looked at the radar and it says, yeah, there's rain coming, but it looks like it's going to be a while away. But as we just talked, I look above your head, Mark, and these clouds are definitely getting darker. There's no question about it. So it's going to be interesting to see when and how much rain shows up.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting for sure. And, the crowds continue to file in here. And, Davey, I must admit, several years ago, when the NTT IndyCar Series returned here, I was wondering, much like when we returned to Road America, what all the hype was about, having never been here, but it didn't take me long to figure it out. And this is a phenomenal venue, and we'll talk about that more in just a minute. Pretty good start to the weekend for Colton Herta. Alex Wolf, he's third quick.
10th quick yesterday, third quick today. Colton, at least for us on the pit lane, it felt like drastically different conditions from yesterday afternoon's practice. How was it for you in the driver's seat of the 26?
Good. We made some good changes overnight, and it showed. It was a bit of a crazy session. Glad Simon's okay. Obviously, it's good to see him walk away from that. But, in our camp, we're just slowly making moves and trying to make the car better, and it seems like we did that, so I'm happy with how it went.
I know it's 2 sessions in, but how's things been going with Rob Edwards on the timing stand with you with this car?
It's been seamlessly. It's been very calm and collected on the radio, which is something you need. We'll have to see if that's still the same once we get into the race and it's a little more heated. But I have a lot of confidence in Rob. And talking within the team, people that have worked with him in the past have the same kind of feeling. It's been pretty good.
That's Colton Herta, third quick in this session. Over to Joel Sebastianelli.
David Malukas was 7th quick in this session. You finished 9th here last year. How quick is the car today?
No, it feels very good. Yesterday we ended up only getting one run in, and then we had a low voltage issue, which we knew what the issue was, but we had to get back to the garage to get it fixed, so we couldn't do the red tire stint that we wanted to. So going into today, for the setup that we had going into primaries, it wasn't exactly what we wanted because we're trying to focus for reds. That is if qualifying doesn't rain, but overall it ended up being very good, and our setup is good. As soon as I did the one run in the morning, we were right where we needed to be, so I knew going in today that we had pace.
The statement that you had made to the Indy Star that you would probably not be coming back to the team probably took a lot of fans by surprise. Was that something that was a given within the team?
Yeah, we signed a 2-year deal with Dale, so it was coming to an end in this season, and we haven't had talks of renewing. Our future definitely lies elsewhere going into the next couple of years. But overall, I still love this team, and we're gonna keep pushing hard all the way until the end and try to get some good results. It seems like we finally found a car for road courses, so I think going into the end of the season, it's going to be a good push. It's
David Malukas, 7th quickest so far.
Thank you.
All right, good stuff. And Davey Hamilton, a done deal. He's already, with an eye for now and improving things with that race team before he departs at the end of the season. But an eye on his future, and it's with another race team.
Well, it sounds like he's got it. Really, honestly, I think that he's already made a deal, really what it sounds like, honestly. Right. So it sounds like the deal's happened. We'll just can't announce it probably yet until later in the season, but we know what to expect for sure.
Yeah, and so back to our conversation before we heard from drivers. Thanks to Joel and Alex for that, by the way. Just, I think this place, the fans always turn out in mass. Some elements in terms of their ticket packages are sold out for the weekend, and this place provides some great vantage points for fans to view a lot of really good racing action. And I think their campground here, especially coming out of that keyhole and going down that straightaway, Davey, to drivers left. That's as much fun as you'll ever have if you ever get a chance to get on a golf cart and drive through that area. Some rabid race fans in that area for sure.
Yeah, it's packed with fans, as you said. It's great here. The trees and the grass until it rains. And then it gets a little slick and slimy, and all the grass they have around here a little muddy. And so these campers, they don't know every time they come here, they don't know if they're going to have a little rain or it's just going to be beautiful all weekend. But they're here. And driving in this morning, that showed it. We could see all just packed when you come over that final hill to see this race course. A lot of people, a lot of cars, a lot of classes. Just a great environment this 4th of July weekend.
Top 10 again: Will Power, Pagenaud, Herta, Award, Dixon, McLaughlin, Rahal, Malukas, Kirkwood, and Felix Rosenquist. Indy next qualifying is our next show at 2:05 Eastern, and then qualifying in preparation for the Honda Indy 200 at Mid-Ohio. Join us for all of the festivities beginning at 2:45, and again, the Firestone Fast 6 will set the field of 27 cars for tomorrow's race. The director of IndyCar Radio was Chris Pollock. Master Control Operations by Sam Rumsa. On-site engineering and production courtesy of Rick Evans. Great job by Joel Sebastianelli and Alex Wolf on pit road. For Davey Hamilton, this is Mark Janes. So long for now from Mid-Ohio.
The preceding was an exclusive copyrighted presentation of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Radio Network.
Race fans, download the IndyCar app for live streaming of every on-track session of Indy Next by Firestone and the NTT IndyCar Series. And in between race weekends, purchase your copy of classic Indy 500 race broadcasts. Go to IMS.com and search for Historical Race Broadcast for almost 75 years of radio archives.
Stay tuned for the greatest spectacle.
It's your chance to own a piece of history and relive your favorite race moments.
IndyCar returns to Iowa with Hy-Vee IndyCar Race Weekend, July 21st to 23rd at Iowa Speedway. Don't miss the season's only NTT IndyCar Series doubleheader weekend with Indy Next by Firestone Racing at the fastest short track on the planet. Join us for Family Day on Friday, the Hy-Vee Homefront 250 presented by Instacart on Saturday, and the Hy-Vee One Step 250 presented by Gatorade on Sunday. Live music all weekend long, Carrie Underwood, Kenny Chesney, Zach Brown Band, and Ed Sheeran. Get your tickets and camping now at HyVeeIndyCarWeekend.com.
It's time to check your gauges and start your engines.
Start your engines!
We're replaying the greatest races and iconic performances by the sport's greatest drivers. This is Sirius XM